Hey, happy Friday. This week I'll talk about OnePlus abandoning stock Android. I'll talk about HMD, the company behind Nokia phones, getting a surprisingly big investment of hundreds of millions of dollars from the likes of Google and Qualcomm. And I'll also talk about Microsoft's first Android phone being a total disaster. Welcome to the Friday Checkout. Okay, my pick of the week is going to be OnePlus's upcoming OxygenOS 11 update, which finally makes things official. The company that was once famous for being the champion of stock Android and made fun of all the other manufacturers for not using stock Android has just decided to abandon stock Android and instead make their own Android skin as well. OxygenOS was never fully stock, but the new update makes it look more like Samsung's One UI than anything, including custom fonts, illustrations, and the UI elements being moved down to the bottom of the screen so you can reach them. I've linked a full video walkthrough of Android Central below where you can actually see it in action. The internet is of course now filled with angry geeks who want their stock Android back, goddammit. I made a Twitter poll that showed that of course not everybody hates Android skins despite what these angry mobs would like you to believe, but still this is a pretty risky move, especially for OnePlus. This announcement also comes right after OnePlus admitted to having pre-installed Facebook services on many of their devices, without even giving their users an easy way to uninstall said services from those devices. And I think the two news together really signal that this is the end of an era. They signal that the era where OnePlus's primary focus was on enthusiasts is now gone. OnePlus has been on this path for many years now, and I've made 3 dedicated videos about it. You can watch them somewhere here. And as I explained in those videos, we enthusiasts are simply a small, unprofitable niche, and OnePlus would like to move beyond that and would like to play in the big leagues where they can make a lot more money. And as it turns out, the simple math of companies trying to make more money requires them to have higher prices. And how can they get higher prices? Of course, they need a product that is differentiated and unique enough to be able to convince consumers to pay those higher prices. Hence why every successful Android manufacturer in the world has an Android skin. Whether we as enthusiasts like it or not doesn't really seem to matter. How do you feel about the new OxygenOS update? Are you a stock Android purist who only wants a stock Android or nothing else? Or are you maybe a little bit excited about the innovation that OnePlus might bring to the table? Let me know down in the comments. Okay, my win of the week is going to be HMD Global, the Finnish company behind the revival of the Nokia smartphone brand, collecting $230 million from investors like Google, Qualcomm, and even Nokia itself, which is extra confusing given how poorly the company has done in the last year or two. HMD started reviving the Nokia brand in 2016 and had a year or two of spectacular growth due to nostalgia and due to their initial good partnerships that then quickly turned into a kind of flatlining and finally a pretty spectacular collapse due to them not really having any sort of innovation or ambition apparently, and now they have less than 1% market share globally. HMD Global likes to call their strategy asset light and likes to boast about how closely they work with their key partners, but in my experience that is just a fancy way of saying that they actually outsource most of the hard work to other companies and don't bring too much know-how to the table themselves. Ever since the Nokia 7 Plus and the 9 PureView, I feel like the company hasn't really had an ambitious device, and even their current flagship kind of hero products like the 8.3, they're not that exciting and they've been delayed since forever, so there's just not a lot there. So yeah, given the lack of any apparent deep technological capabilities, and given the fact that HMD has been performing poorly in basically all of their core markets in the last year or two, I'm not entirely sure what these investors are seeing that we aren't seeing from the outside. But then again, they do have access to different information than we do. They are Google, Qualcomm, and Nokia. I would assume that those are 3 companies that know how the smartphone market works. So I hope that this is the shot in the arm that HMD needed to wake up and kind of start innovating again. And I hope it works well for them. It's cool. They're now worth over $1 billion, so that makes them a unicorn that is kind of unique, especially in Europe. I hope it turns out well. Apparently, the company wants to spend the majority of this money on two separate things. One, an expansion to the United States, where HMD wants to expand to next. And two, the company wants to bolster its software and services capabilities. They now have a new software R&D facility in Finland, actually, which is, I guess, cool. They've also acquired a company called Valona Labs, which is an enterprise cybersecurity company. They apparently want to build out new enterprise security capabilities like remote device management, for example. So maybe the end goal is to move away from trying to sell to end consumers and more over to trying to sell to corporate customers who might value fast update and secure software more than regular consumers. Maybe that's the end plan. Anyway, I'm a little confused, but I wish for the best for HMD. And my fail of this week is going to be the Microsoft Surface Duo that they have just announced. It is a $1,400 Android smartphone with a processor from last year, a battery that would be too small to power even a single screen, a camera that's shaping up to be the worst one we've seen in a flagship phone in almost a decade, and no extras like no NFC, no wireless charging, no 5G, no high refresh rate screens, basically nothing. The Duo basically has two separate problems that kind of compound on top of each other to make it a pretty undesirable device. First, it probably just took Microsoft way longer than they expected to actually bring it to market, which means that it actually had to come out with very outdated specs that kind of look like it was designed for last year. And two, the dual screen form factor that Microsoft has specifically chosen here makes it so that the company can't really make it both sufficiently thin to actually be an attractive device and at the same time make it so that it has good components. The easiest examples, of course, are decently sized batteries that just need a lot of space, and good cameras, for example, that just need a lot of depth. That's why you have these camera bumps coming out of even really thick phones. And I guess Microsoft just chose to go with a really thin profile so that the device doesn't become too thick when you fold it up. It's actually impressively less than 5 millimeters thin when it's folded out, which is cool, I guess, but it means that it is basically physically impossible to put a proper camera and a proper battery inside of it. And since LG and Microsoft are basically the only two device makers that bother with making dual screen Android devices, neither of which are known to sell devices in really high quantities, I don't actually expect app makers to take this form factor very seriously and to optimize their apps for it. So it doesn't really matter how hard Microsoft tries, I don't even expect the software experience to be really good here. I feel like dual screen devices could have had a chance maybe 2 or 3 years ago when foldable phones were really kind of crappy and ugly and fragile and everything, but Microsoft took way too long to actually bring this to the market, and the Gen 1 Duo isn't really it yet either. Everyone is saying that maybe Gen 2 or Gen 3 will be a proper consumer-facing device, and by that time it will be way too late. The market will have moved on a long time ago, so I don't think this is it. Is this a topic you'd like me to make a full video on? If yes, let me know down in the comments. Alright, a big thank you to CuriosityStream for sponsoring this episode and for giving you free access to Nebula, the video streaming platform that is built and owned by me, as well as a bunch of your favorite educational creators like Low Spec Gamer, Wendover Productions, Real Engineering, Tierzoo, Polymatter, and many others. Nebula is kind of our corner of the internet where we don't have to worry about demonetization, the mysterious YouTube algorithm, or invading your privacy, or basically anything else like that, and we can just focus on making really good content for you. My videos from both of my channels are up on Nebula, completely ad-free of course, and TechAltar ones even get released a day early there. There are also tons of really great originals on Nebula, like hour-long documentaries from Wendover Productions, a series on the logistics of D-Day by Real Engineering, or Money, which is an original game show developed by the one and only Tom Scott. And access to Nebula comes for free with a subscription to CuriosityStream, which itself is 26% off right now, so you get both services for just over $1 a month. CuriosityStream is of course the premier place on the internet for high quality professional documentaries from the founder of the Discovery Channel, and they have a huge library of science, nature, and history content to binge while you're stuck at home. I'm currently watching Flight of the Dragon, which is a documentary on NASA and SpaceX, and there's a ton of other great content here from hosts like David Attenborough, Jane Goodall, Stephen Hawking, and more. So check them out at the link in the description, and I'll see you next week.